Peter Piper picked a bag of pickled peppers. Welcome back to Old Man Media.
Should we grab my cup of tea?
Of course, can't start without the cup of tea. So this is the fourth and final episode about Fred Neil.
The penultimate finale.
Penultimate means the one before.
Oh. The grand finale.
The grand finale.
I don't know what words was so hard to pronounce. Finale.
Finale. Finale. Finale.
Finale.
Why are you saying it like that?
Finale.
Finale.
Yeah, we're your hosts, Paul Buchanan
and Will Ragg. I think it's probably going to be a bit shorter episode. It's going to be a very depressing episode as well.
All right.
Sick. If
you haven't tuned out already,
I don't know how many episodes.
No, stick around. It's going to get depressing. Get the tissues out.
Yeah, it does get quite. Anyway,
I remember like a couple episodes back. I was like, "Oh, it's getting bleak now," because he's like got the heroin addiction. And
well, I mean, the good news is he is off heroin. From in the 80s, he did kick
silver
all
linings.
Drugs. So I thought I'd start it off just a little bit more lighthearted. We talk about the Grateful Dead for a second, because actually he does have a couple of Grateful Dead connections. Obviously, there's what I mentioned before about I think it was John Sebastian said that he was the Grateful Dead before the Grateful Dead, in that he enjoyed like long instrumentals when he was live, and playing around with instruments and improvising. But actually, there's another one. Do you know Wavy Gravy?
No.
So I didn't know about this either, but he's the official clown of the Grateful Dead.
Got a court jester of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, like basically, look it up. Go on his Wikipedia.
Gravy Wavy.
Wavy Gravy.
Wavy Gravy.
Go on his Wikipedia article, because he's got a really funny picture, like on his Wikipedia thing, which has got like a tie-dye tank top saying "Keep Austin Weird" or something. It's just strange.
Man, what a way to be remembered. It's like, what was your granddad? What did he do?
He went by Wavy Gravy.
Oh, he was the clown for Grateful Dead.
Yeah, I don't really know what being the clown of the Grateful Dead entailed, but anyway, so Wavy Gravy was having a birthday party and invited Fred. I don't know how he knew Fred, but he did. And obviously members of the Dead were there, and Jefferson Airplane, Fred's friends who wrote songs about him, but also Ken Kesey, who I mentioned before, written a poem about him.
It's a very 70s name, isn't it?
Ken Kesey.
Ken Kesey. Can imagine him having a moustache.
Well, no, the thing is that Ken Kesey
Tom Selleck
was a man of the 60s, really, because he was one of the original beat poets. He did the acid tests. You know about the acid tests in Grateful Dead?
Yeah.
That was him. He set those up. He organised the Merry Pranksters. And also a guy called Paul Krasner was there, who was also part of the Merry Pranksters. Fred bowed out, obviously. And he attended almost no public events ever again. So this is like, I think, mid-80s, and he died in 2001. So that's, nearly 20 years of seclusion, basically. There's a quote in the book. Again, I'll shout out the book, Peter Lee Neff. That's the Bag I'm In, the life, music and mystery of Fred Neil.
You have to lend me the book after this.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Also, if you're interested in what I've been talking about, it goes far more in depth in the book. Can't stress that enough. He's actually a really good writer, and he's done Fred a really great justice with the book. But yeah, Wavy Gravy was really annoyed because Fred did say he'd go, and then he didn't. So quite rightfully annoyed. But yeah, no public events ever again in his life. Okay, right. Buckle up, because this is where it gets depressing. So I'm just going to read this straight from the laptop. In 1987, Fred was dating a woman named Christine Purcell. Christine had a large 1972 Dodge Camper. Sounds like a pretty cool van, but it was incredibly unreliable.
They often are, those old campers.
VWs and so Fred and Christine had this routine to start the camper, where Christine would go underneath and she put some wires together, and Fred would sit in the driver's seat and start the ignition. One day they were in a gas station in Miami. The couple then have to go through the same process, and Christine had either not put the car into neutral or not put the handbrake on, and Fred started the car and crushed and killed Christine.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah, it would, you know, that grief and that guilt would follow him the rest of his life. He felt personally responsible for her death. Apparently he wouldn't stop crying for weeks. That would cause him to grow further despondent and more isolated and more paranoid. He refused to drive after this as well. Never got behind the wheel of a car. Also, I mean, that could be due to his dyslexia, and obviously dyslexics sometimes have trouble driving.
Really?
Reading road signs and such.
Oh yeah, so.
Especially in those days, but there wasn't like a phone or whatever. But it's said during Christine's funeral that a black butterfly would fly straight in front of Fred's face, and he saw this as a sign of her comforting him. So that's the way to kick off the episode. Fred wasn't completely isolated. He did have a few trips where he'd go and see people. So I think almost straight after the funeral, he went and visited New York. He saw Richie Havens and Joe Mara. Richie Havens, I've talked about before, was kind of a protest singer in the 60s. He's got a really great album that I think it's High Flying Birds on there, really great song. And Joe Mara, he was the owner of the Night Owl Cafe, where Fred performed frequently in the 60s. So he went and visited some old buddies in New York. I don't think obviously he didn't perform because he never touched an instrument again, never sang or anything. He then got back to Coconut Grove and found out another of his friends had died. Another of his friends had died.
How old is Fred at this point in his life?
So he was born in 55. Let me pull that up. He was born in 1936. So in the mid to late 80s, he would have been, I think, just over 40. Is that no 50? Wait, oh god, I can't do maths.
Sorry, what year is this?
This is 1987.
And he was born in
36.
Ah. Like 44.
Yeah, around that age. Cool.
54 maybe. So yeah, sort of the age.
I can't do the maths there.
Wait, do you say 37 to...
No, 36 to 87.
36 to 87. Yeah, so 51. 36 to 87. Yeah, 51.
Maths not our strong point at Old Man Media.
Yeah, we've got dyscalculus. I mean, that's the sort of age I assume that a lot of your friends would start.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, especially with the way they were living with the drugs.
Just like, how old was he when he walked away from music as well? That's a good,
so he would have been, if he was 51 then, he would have been, 40? Late 30s, early 40s. He walked away from music.
Yeah, which, it's understandable kind of trajectory for someone like him who wanted to, step away from the biz.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's quite impressive that Fred lived this long. With the amount of drugs he was doing in the 60s and early 70s. People like his friend Graham Parsons, I say friend, collaborator at one point, died very young in a house fire, I believe. So Fred's about 51, and another of his friends have died in Coconut Grove, and that was it for him. Living at the Grove had become unbearable, and haunted memories in every corner, and so he just started giving all of his possessions away. His friends would always talk about his generosity, and he was very giving. If somebody didn't have rent, one of his friends was complaining about not having enough money, suddenly they'd find an envelope of money at their doorstep. Fred would never say it was from him, but they kind of knew that it was. Lots of anonymous gifts, guitars for kids, roses for grieving mothers.
It's a class act.
He is. He was apparently a lovely guy. I mean, if you just met him on the street, he probably wouldn't have been very nice to you. But if you were his friend, he was very loyal.
Well, what makes you think that he wouldn't be nice to a stranger?
Well, there's a story at the beginning of the book where Peter Lee Neff has actually said that he met Fred in the I think it was late 60s, maybe early 70s, and he said he like had a very short conversation with him. Fred was very curt, just didn't really want to, just wanted to go. I think it was at the end of a gig, and he just wanted to go home. And there are a couple of stories of, like, I think Neff talking to other people and saying, yeah, Fred was a bit of an arsehole. But there was genuine, like, trouble behind that, and there was, like, he didn't really want to talk to people, and he had a lot of his own troubles.
Well, he's got his paranoia.
Yeah, paranoia.
But, you know, you look at the timeline as well, and I think when he was probably in a stage of being done with the fame, he was probably more pissed off with strangers and stuff, whereas I can imagine him as if you met him on the street and you didn't know he was a musician, he'd probably like you more.
Yeah, true.
He'd be like, hey.
Yeah. One more example of Fred's generosity was that Peter Childs just sat and, you know, him and Fred are shooting the shit, and he starts complaining to Fred about the healthcare system, because he and his wife both needed surgery. And Peter found $9,000 on his table, and they both got their surgery.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the book, it says that, you know, probably all stemmed from, well, not stemmed, but, you know, his family were very giving as well. So one Thanksgiving dinner, they find that the family next door haven't got food for Thanksgiving dinner, and they all. Fred's mum and his grandmother pitched in, just gave them their Thanksgiving meal, and they didn't eat anything. I think they had like scrambled eggs for Thanksgiving dinner, and the other family had their meal.
Makes you wonder what his upbringing was in terms of like religion and what his philosophical
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't talk about religion in the book. Actually, I don't really know what Fred was. Certainly, he wasn't very outwardly religious. I don't think there's many like religious subtext in his songs or anything. So I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, like he doesn't strike me as an ultimately Christian person, but it sounds from that story that maybe his family were, and then, you know, through that you probably take some of the teachings,
yeah, of course,
good, and, you know, lose the preachiness.
Yeah, it could have been.
You know, it's just Fred Neil's such an enigma. You know, who there probably is some information out there if you dig hard enough, but
yeah, probably. I mean, I'm trying to imagine, because I mean, obviously he came from Colorado. I mean, he could have been Mormon. I don't know.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I don't know though. Mormons giving people?
Yeah, true. I don't know.
They're assholes.
Yeah. From what I've heard, I've never actually met one, so I don't know.
Oh, I've met them.
Have you?
Yeah, there's a little community in Brighton.
Is there really?
When I was living there, they used to stop me regularly.
True, I remember that.
But they're like, you could tell them because they must have been missionaries. They had an American accent. I remember ones that had a bass on my back, and they were like, "Hey, do you play the guitar?" And I just had my headphones on, and I just ignored him. And he's like, "Hey," and then I felt, you know, to the point where it's like, oh, I'm ignoring him, and it's getting awkward. So I took out my headphone. I was like, you know, obviously just like, what do you want? and because I knew he was a Mormon, he's dressed like a Mormon. You know, he's got the shirt and tie.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Is that a guitar on your back?" And I was like, "No, it's a bass." And then he was like,
I mean, you were being obtuse there. I mean, that's
because I knew he was trying to convert me to Mormonism. I don't want to stop and chat to you, bro. Like, he's not a friendly stranger. He's on a mission. He's, you know,
yeah.
And yeah, he was just like. He was like, "Oh, cool music, huh?" Like, really just searching for a conversation topic. And then, you know, obviously in Brighton there's a lot of musicians, so he probably, you know, it's a common way of talking to people. But yeah, and then he was like, "You know, you should come hang out sometime." And yeah, I remember being really, really kind of down in the dumps a couple times in Brighton, and being on the street and being approached by them and being like, "Man, if things get much worse, I might just have to show up for a bit of community at this fucking Mormon church."
That's the last ditch effort. I mean, that's yeah. God, no, I don't think you could pay me to be a Mormon. Apparently, they're pretty awful. Anyway,
this podcast, you know, straight out the gate, just becomes an enemy.
We've isolated all of our Mormon listeners. If there are any in like Utah or Ohio or something, we're sorry.
Yeah, there have been rising numbers in Utah, so they'll be gone.
Not anymore. So, there's another story about Fred and Free Mills. Basically, when he first got to New York, he would go to this diner. And this is a story Fred tells. He'd go to this diner, and the owner would see him that he's obviously not had a hot meal in a few days, and Fred would order his meal, and then he'd go to pay, and the owner would refuse the money. And then a couple of years go by, he comes in again. He's obviously, got cleaner clothes on, he's got a haircut, and he's doing okay for him. And then time comes to pay again, and the guy takes his money, and he points at another guy down the bar who's in the same position that Fred was a few years ago, and Fred gets the gist. This his time's come, and he's got to pay for his meal now. So yeah, Fred also mentored a lot of people throughout the 60s. He always had kind of like charity in his heart. Lisa Kindred, I don't think I mentioned, but she was she wasn't particularly famous, but Fred took her in and mentored her a bit. David Crosby, Stephen Stills, Graham Parson, John Sebastian, all were mentored by Fred, and even Dylan at one point. He gave Dylan his first job. It was only a minor role, but that's still like a significant part in Dylan's story.
Was it the worst harmonica player?
Oh yeah, getting sugar shaker thrown at you to shut you up. And so back to the mid 80s now. He heads for Mexico. He's staying in a small fishing village called Puerto Morelos. He's there for 3 to 4 months. He would go by the name Rico, as in Frederico.
Guy, man.
That is funny, but it was because he was trying to escape his old identity.
Committing to the bit.
Yeah, he was. Trying to escape from the name Fred, and all of that kind of entailed, and didn't want anyone to recognise him. And obviously, I remember again, he's not driving, right? So his friend that had driven him to Puerto Morelos, had gone back a month before, and had gone back to Texas. And then one day, Fred just shows up at his house in Texas. Obviously, he's not driving, so they have no idea how he got there. But maybe he hitchhiked, maybe he got a plane, I don't know. But he stayed there in Bastrop, Texas, for a while, and then moved on to Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi, I don't know if you know, but it's on the coast in Texas. It's kind of it's similar sort of vibe to Coconut Grove, small kind of town on the coast, and quite cheap, and so he finds a similar place.
I need to move to the seaside or something.
I don't think Corpus Christi or Coconut Grove are either of them are very nice anymore. Well,
I don't want to move there. I want to find an untouched island paradise that's cheap.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows any of that,
the Philippines is quite good for it. It's just the political situation's not great.
Yeah. just you might get stopped and have to pay off the police.
Yeah. Don't have any sort of anti-government views or anything.
I would never.
I love Bong Bong Marcos. This is a pro Bong Bong Marcos. Anyway,
I'm not signing on to that.
You don't know what he is, do you?
I don't want that in writing. It's the president of the Philippines.
Oh yeah, he was. He's not anymore.
Oh, is he not anymore?
And there was also what was his name? Muerta. Oh, fuck.
Tune in a couple of weeks where we go into the political unrest in Philippines.
And that we can only half remember as well.
If a friend of the podcast, Ethan Elms, is listening, you could probably come in and be a guest. You've been there.
Yeah, I'm sure you know all about it. He goes back to New York again. He goes to a Dave Van Ronk show. Dave begs him to perform with him. Fred declines.
This is in the 80s when he's like 50.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Late 80s.
Dave Van Ronk must have been... I feel like he was 50 back in the 60s.
Yeah, he was old back then. I think Dave Van Ronk died the same year Fred did, I have a feeling.
Pull that up.
Dave Van Ronk, he died 2002, so actually he died after Fred.
Wow. How old was he when
he was 65.
Oh my God.
He was born the same year as Fred.
He doesn't... Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's him in 68.
He just never look. Every picture I've seen of him,
He does look old.
really old. But maybe that's only because he got recognition when he was old.
I think he 70s. I don't know. He wasn't huge in the 60s. I don't think. Anyway, next episode about Dave Van Ronk, possibly.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So Fred obviously declines to perform with Dave, and after that he moves to Newport, Oregon, which is. Very out of the way place. I mean, Oregon's already an out of the way state. He has an out of the way place in Oregon. So
It's not the Newport Folk Festival location.
it could be. I don't know. I thought Newport. I think there's more than one Newport.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pull that up.
Yeah. No, yeah. Newport Folk Festival is in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of closer to New York.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
So he moved to Newport, Oregon.
Newport, Oregon. While he was there, his second wife, Elaine, if you'll remember, she's the one after the model.
Can't see my beans.
Yes, that's the one. Well remembered, because that is useful. So he's there. Elaine manages to get in touch with him. I think she's got in contact with his lawyer, and she's like, I really want him to see his son. And when he answers the phone, Fred's paranoia has grown, quite immensely. It's very clear to Elaine, and so he makes her answer a few questions. Where did we live in New York? What was it you said when the lights went out that made me laugh? I can't see my beans.
Yeah.
So and then he believes her after that.
It's crazy because there is evidence of like the CIA and stuff actually tracking people.
Yeah.
Monitoring people and kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
shaking
more than
people
that.
up.
I mean, COINTELPRO. Part of it was they tracked people like Phil Oakes and what's the Bob Dylan guy, the other one in the film. What's his name? Edward Norton plays him in the film. Can't remember.
Pete Seeger.
Pete Seeger. They followed Pete Seeger. They followed Phil Oakes.
I was going to say Pete Seeger definitely got followed because his
was
whole
very
act got taken off the air for having communist sentiments.
Yeah. I mean, the FBI did track and keep files on folk musicians, showing any sort of anti-government. I mean, politics weren't really.
When those get released, we're going to have so many more sources for our podcast. It's going to be unreal.
That'd be a really good episode.
The FBI folk files.
There's a really interesting book I've been meaning to read about that. About the I can't remember what it's called now. I'll look it up and send you a link. But that was big in the 60s. Is that they would track people, as well as obviously civil rights activists and people. So I mean, maybe Fred's paranoia does have a basis in kind of reality.
And tagging on to that as well, there's a theory that Bob Dylan abandoned protest music in the same sort of fears of the government and being like, there was I think it was Times magazine, and it had like JFK on it, and it had Martin Luther King on it, had someone else on it, and then it had Bob Dylan on it, and all of them had crosshairs over them. And
really?
I think he saw that, and he was like, "Jesus, I'm not." I think at the time Martin Luther King and JFK had been assassinated. And
that was kind of. I mean, both. I mean, I think JFK was 68, and
Malcolm X was the third person, and he was just like, "Jesus, I'm."
They're saying he's next.
Yeah, they're like, I'm in line with these guys. Like, it must have been crazy, and I think that probably influenced his move away, and just going down the route of enjoying music instead of getting killed for it.
Yeah, that's. I got the date completely wrong about JFK at 63, not 68.
Yeah,
and I think.
I think around the time that this happened, this would have been 64, 65. So yeah, JFK would have been dead. And it obviously was such a big event because even now, I think it was in 2020, he released "A Murder Most Foul," a 20-minute folk epic of. It's sort of that modern Dylan sound, but it's all about the JFK's murder and stuff.
Yeah, that was really weird. I guess that does make sense.
But like, it's just a huge cultural event to him, and it obviously influenced him. And I guess he's at the age of reflection.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what? I think some of Bob Dylan's best work on his most recent album, Rough and Rowdy Ways.
Oh yeah, I really like that album.
Despite having the worst album cover I've ever seen.
It is an awful album cover.
It's like, to be fair, it preceded AI, which is impressive. Because it looks fucking AI schlop.
ChatGPT. Picture of legs next to jukebox. Jesus. Anyway, so yeah, obviously this paints a picture of, like, you know, his ex-wives, his own sons didn't know where he was. His friends didn't know where he was. They had to. The only person that really knew who he was, I think, was like a handful of people who I'll get into in a second. So Elaine and Fred take a short road trip together up the west coast and into Canada. They have fun. They come back, and then Susie Hearthcock. I don't remember. I talked about her. Fred's lifelong friend. Well, I say lifelong, about 30 years. Randomly got a call from Fred asking her to come out to Oregon. They also would go on a road trip together. Susie remarks that Fred wouldn't eat out anymore. He would only cook or get takeaway. Another example of his paranoia. He also would make sure she wore inconspicuous clothing, baseball hat, glasses, and so on.
Jeez. But like, Fred wasn't even that politically charged, was he?
Nope, not at all. Not really. I mean, he has one song with Vince Martin, which could be seen as political. But yeah, nothing really. I don't even really think Fred would have had a file on him at the FBI.
Maybe he did something.
Maybe
something. I mean, you know,
the only thing I could think of was the dolphin stuff.
Yeah,
obviously he
true.
was friends with Rico Barry, who did actually go to prison for the dolphin stuff. Maybe there's something going on there, and they thought that was anti-government enough to warrant a file. I don't know.
Well, maybe it's not even the American government he's hiding from, but it's because I think obviously the dolphin stuff was like quite.
In Japan as well.
Yeah, it was like sort of an attack on Japanese culture, because they have that day where they go down to that beach and they just cull all those dolphins.
Yeah, they kill a lot of dolphins.
Yeah.
So during Peter and Susie's road trip, they go and visit Peter Childs. Do you remember Peter Childs was one of Fred's session musicians? Peter, I think I already told this story, but Peter begged Fred to play guitar, you know, old time's sake or whatever, and Fred absolutely flat out refused. Couldn't do it. If I'm honest, most of the rest of this is just going to be more examples of Fred paranoia, but I'll go on anyway. So for Christmas, Fred bought Susie a camera and showed her how to use it. Apparently he was quite a good photographer. I don't know where that came from. Probably had some friends in New York or something who were photographers and showed him a thing or two.
Some people just got the eye, man.
Yeah. I think Fred did. Fred didn't love nature, I think, more than anything. And he had, he would make sure Susie took photos of nature and would show him how to shoot it. And if Susie ever took a photo of him, he would take it out and destroy it.
So it not got many pictures.
No, not later. There is one. There's one in the book that shows Fred. I mean, he's obviously put on quite a bit of weight, and it's a bit bedraggled. But there is one picture in the book. A couple of months later, Susie would get a call from a very frantic Fred. He had to go back to Florida, and so they drove from Newport, Oregon, to the Florida Keys. I looked it up on Google Maps. That is 48 hours without stopping.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they switch or?
No, Fred doesn't drive.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an insane journey, which I guess they would have had to do over 4 or 5 days. I also think Fred wasn't flying, possibly. Anything. I can't remember.
Yeah, probably too scared to fly.
True.
I don't know how much how much identification you needed in those days, but
yeah,
it's obviously one of the most high-profile things to do nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, obviously back then I think it was a bit more relaxed because they hadn't had 9/11 yet. But yeah, I think probably having a passport wasn't something Fred would have wanted to do, so probably wouldn't have flown. Not sure.
But then, would you need a passport for domestic US flights?
I don't know. That's a good point.
But
back in those days, maybe not. I don't know.
So I guess an ID would be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe even that was too much for
old Fred.
Old Freddy.
So basically what happened is that Rico Barry called Fred and he said that someone was needed at the Sugarloaf Dolphin Sanctuary. And so Rico Barry by that point had stopped at this Miami Sea Aquarium and was working at the Dolphin Sanctuary. The owner didn't know the first thing about looking after dolphins and was bringing people off the street to feed them. and this Rick and Fred were up in arms about it, and so Fred went down, and he got a job. And so he would get up at 5 every morning, defrost and chop up fish to feed the dolphins, and and that was his job. But to the people at Sugarloaf, Fred was Buddy. They didn't know who he was.
Pseudonym.
That was his pseudonym, Buddy. And it was around this time. I'm not bit shaky on the years at this point. I'm not exactly sure what year, but around this time, Fred develops a spider bite on his face. Figuring it would just go away, he ignored it. Obviously, if I'm mentioning it, it wasn't actually a spider bite. Fred, he would live in his house on the Florida Keys most of the time now. He wasn't living in Coconut Grove. He wouldn't go back there. And he would have his groceries brought to him by someone who had no idea who he was. This was just a kid, probably wasn't even really alive. Well, maybe he'd just been born in the 60s, I don't know.
Yeah, but he also, like, he wasn't like a household name. Like, a lot of people wouldn't have known who he was. Especially at this point in the 80s.
But, he didn't even know his name was Fred. He thought his name was Rick. But after Fred's death, he would figure it out. Fred's spider bite had grown bigger and darker. He now thought it was ringworm. It was neither. It was cancer. But by now he'd waited too long, and the surgery had caused him to had left him with a hole in his cheek. This caused him to further isolate himself. So the little bit he was going out to go, go to Sugarloaf and work, he wasn't doing that anymore because he just so ashamed of how he looked now as well. The paranoia. Fred has some questions about publishing rights, so he had a conversation with a man called Randy Poe. And so Poe worked in the Brill Building back in the 50s. Remember I said about the Brill Building in the first episode. And so they have a long conversation, and Fred asks him about all the guys that were back there back in the day. Jimmy Crones, Doc Pomus, Mort Schumann, they were all dead. Poe said he could hear Fred on the other end of the phone crying. I think at this point Fred's mortality is creeping up on him, and he's realising he probably doesn't have much longer left, especially with his cancer.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a sense of, he's isolated himself in so much, but then, you get the sense that he's probably learning about all these things that he didn't stay in the loop about, and he's probably kind of upset about it.
Yeah. Vince Martin hears about his phone call with Randy Poe. Obviously, remember Vince Martin did an album with him. And Vince tries to get a message to Fred. He says, "Tell him I love him. Tell him to call me. I don't want to sing. I don't want to record. I just want to talk to him." But Fred never called. And then Fred's cancer came back after the surgery. He was due to start chemotherapy on the 16th of July. But Fred was found dead in his home on the 7th with a handwritten will on his nightstand.
What was his cause of death? Just
the cancer.
Okay, because he's got the will written on his.
I think he knew that he didn't really have long left. He didn't want to call for help, so he just wrote the note and just laid on his bed and died. I think. I mean, we don't know really, but that's the assumption there, I think. Fred's funeral was simple. A wreath was cast out to sea with a mahogany plaque. According to Rick O'Barry, the dolphins came out that day in a place where they usually wouldn't, out on the shores just off of Florida.
That's amazing if true.
Yeah, and anyway, after that, I will leave you with this from Fred Neil's Little Bit of Rain. Remember the good times, warm days filled with sunshine, and just a little bit of rain. Yeah. So that concludes, obviously, Fred's life. I have a little bit more here. Just for fun, just because I was reading it, and the book, and just the amount of names that came up was so impressive. I wrote them all down. There are, in here, 78 names of people that either Fred knew, performed with, influenced, met at some point any of this? I mean, you know, I'll just give you a few.
I mean, if viewers are watching the video, then I'll flash them all up on screen.
Oh, okay.
But you're welcome to read out a few notable ones.
Yeah, Albert Grossman, Bob Dylan, Bobby Charles, Dave Van Ronk, Eric Anderson, Felix Pappalardi, Eric Burden, Graham Nash, Harry Nilsson, Jack Nietzsche, Hoyt Axton, Jacob Pastorius, Jeff Bridges, Jerry Jeff Walker, Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah, that comes in. So it wasn't an important bit, so I didn't put it in. But Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Buffett, John Sebastian, Johnny Cash, he met at one point as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. He went to Nashville and performed with Johnny Cash. Apparently there's a duet of him with Johnny Cash.
Wow. What, a recording?
A recording. I don't know where it is, but apparently there is one. Karen Dalton, Larry Beckett, Linda Ronstadt. Linda Ronstadt, I don't know if you know Linda, but not personally, obviously, but she's obviously like a big country singer, one of the big female country singers of the late 20th century, and she said she'd have loved to perform with Fred if Fred would have allowed it. Obviously Fred never did. Louis Armstrong, Mamas and the Papas, Neil Young, Odetta, Paul Butterfield, Paul Kantner and the rest of Jefferson Aeroplane, Paul Newman, Phil Oakes, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Ray Charles, Richie Havens, Rick Danko and the rest of the band, Sam Phillips, Shel Silverstein, Stephen Stills, The Eagles, Tim Buckley, Warren Zevon, Wavy Gravy. Yeah, that's just some of the highlights.
Wavy Gravy, shout out to Wavy Gravy. the most important and influential clown of the 20th century.
Yeah,
it's a very beautiful life, and you know, shout out to the author of the book,
Peter Lee Neff,
because to compile all of these stories and have that in writing on a man that's so inconspicuous, you know. I think there's something beautiful about it being sort of hidden and personal to himself as well, you know. I think it's a testament to, you know, it's almost the anti of what our age is about, of, you know, living outwardly and performing and stuff, whereas he was such an inward guy, humble, a little bit abrasive at times with, you know, like we're talking about how, you know, people would approach him after shows and stuff, and it's like, I think we've moved to a point where it's more and more difficult to live in that way. And it's good to sort of remember the beauty of a life like that, and, you know, the ups and the downs and the nature of life itself, really.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I mean, Fred, he didn't really want fame, he just wanted to perform music, and I think that's really interesting.
Half of his life he did.
What do you mean? Oh, well, he wouldn't even perform music later on. I think that, he got too famous and he was getting too much attention. Obviously, the paranoia came in there as well. But, yeah, I just think that for music's sake, it's always... in
the biopic, they'll have him in his bed with the guitar as he passes away. As if the last time he touched it was in private by himself.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know, I like to think that he did play in private, but...
Yeah, me too.
It's, I don't even think he owned any guitars, that's the only thing. Yeah. I don't know, it's a sad one. It was obviously a very sad episode, this, but I just think Fred's second solo album, I think is just impeccable. It's one of the best albums of the 60s. I flick through like some Mojo best albums of the 60s one, it's on there as well. You know, this is an album that is fairly well known now. It wasn't so much back in the day, but you know, I think he is getting some recognition in some way, so which is good. But
yeah, I mean, I think he'll always be, to music lovers and who want to follow the trail of influence, he'll always be known as maybe for his connection from Harry Nilsson to Bob Dylan to the Lovin' Spoonful to he's and even Karen Dalton and Tim Buckley, like there's
so many people there.
You can trace a direct line from a lot of even modern music today back to Fred Neil.
Yeah, I mean, that experimentation, I mean, that was stuff, he was doing The Dead Before the Dead, like John Sebastian said, and he was doing that improvised long instrumentals, and he was just having fun with it, It's a joy to listen to. If you have a chance, go and listen to some of his live recordings because they're really, really good. Yeah, and on that depressing note,
and that wraps up our first series on, which is our first series on the life of Fred Neil. But I think we're planning to do some more in the future.
Stuff in the works.
I've got a book on Jonathan Richman that I'm making my way through that I want to potentially, if there's enough there, I'd like to do some episodes on him. We're talking about Dave Van Ronk.
I have. I have one. Probably just be like a one-off or something. But we have some other stuff coming. I quite like this historical stuff as well as the reviews and stuff.
I think it's hitting a good stride with the mix of our love for movie and film, which it feels like still quite current and stuff. And then we reviewed the Geese album obviously early days, but like I think for me it's like something has to be particularly striking for modern for me to want to bring up something modern on the podcast. But yeah, we've got the Oscars to look forward to as well. That's going to be.
God, I'm on the edge of my seat.
Special, but yeah, we've upgraded the video quality this week, so hopefully, we might need to start getting makeup and stuff in though, because you can see every wart and freckle on my face.
Every pore.
Tune in next week.